Hey guys, what's up? So this is a giant Revolt I picked up from a friend and I built it up this winter to be my new gravel bike. And lo and behold, the frame cracked right here. Actually, on the other side of the frame, it kind of wrapped around like this. There was like a slight bit of a mark right here that I thought nothing of, like a very mild line. I thought it was just a line in the paint. And it actually cracked right above that line. Getting this frame fixed is my, next goal. I don't really want to dismantle it. It was so much work running manual, cable, the hoses and the shifting cables and stuff. And it actually is performing excellently. I actually rode it with the crack. I didn't realize, I think it cracked the very first time I rode it. And I think I've rode this bike about 4 times. And the last time I rode it, when I was pushing really, really hard uphill, I could hear like, I had to be like probably doing like 500 watts or something and throwing my weight around. So I'm going to grind off the paint here and kind of do a carbon repair. I've masked off with some duct tape the area. The crack was right about here. You can feel it on the other side and we'll look at that in a minute. But I'm going to go ahead and just kind of wrap this whole area. So I'll show you the process I'm using to remove the paint, which is, this is not the right way to do it. Nothing I ever do is really the right way, but I think the reason why this frame broke in this spot, I don't think there's like too much seat post or anything out. I've got a lot of weight though, and I feel like this frame is probably designed to have a lot of flex in this area, trying to get this to get you a little more comfortable ride. So maybe this area, and it's kind of got this interesting sort of zone right here where it's flat. It's flat in the back and kind of rounded in the front like the seat post. So I'm guessing they're, trying to encourage a little bit of compliance here. I'm not trying to do this professionally. So if I was going to probably get this frame fixed professionally, I would guess that it would probably be about a $300 job. So this line right here is the actual crack that went all the way through the frame. You could push against this line right here, and you could actually see this moving. The carbon didn't delaminate. Like if you tapped this with like a coin or something, you didn't hear anything because it didn't come apart. Like the carbon didn't separate the layers of carbon, but instead it just split right here. Delamination, it would have continued, you'd see like more damage in the paint and stuff. And it was just a very mild, I didn't get any images before I started working on it. But yeah, so I'm going to try to remove some more of this crack. And then I'm going to, so the carbon repair, to get all this other paint and stuff off here. But basically, I'm just going to do like kind of a wrap around this whole tube. And then I'll kind of reinforce the area where it cracked a little bit. And, I have no, like I know for sure that the bike is not going to be the exact same, after this. Like ride characteristics is probably going to be a little different. This area will probably be a little bit stiffer. I'm also probably going to add, 100 grams or so to the frame, which is kind of a big deal when the frame is, like super light to begin with. And you're like, okay, well, I'm adding 100 grams to it. But the idea is really just to save it from just going in the trash. And, if I ride it for a while, if I get a year or two out of it and it's not doing anything, weird here, I think carbon, is very, very repairable, and it might hold up for quite a while like this. Okay, so I've sanded some more, I've cleaned some more. The next step is going to be to make sure that it is like completely super clean. I'll use rubbing alcohol, get it super, super clean all the way around. And then I'm going to have to cut some fiber pieces out and prepare my carbon repair and get my carbon epoxy mixed up and ready to go. Okay guys, so here's my carbon kit, just came today. Bought this from Amazon. I believe it was like $25. It was the cheapest one. I wanted the cheapest one I could find, All right, so here's what you get in it. Not much. So there's different kits. You know, you can buy a more expensive one that has more stuff in it. So you get your epoxy resin. This is, you know, a 2-part resin. And so it says, it's got directions on here. I mix 2 to 1. 2 parts A, 1 part B. That's why you get a big A bottle and a little B bottle. And I need to smoothly mix it for 3 minutes. That's the only directions are on this bottle. That's it. That's all you get. Besides that, you get 2 mixing cups, which is nice. You get a couple mixing sticks. I assume these are some sort of alcohol pad or something. I'm not sure what's in here. And then here's the carbon fiber itself, which you want to really make sure this stuff stays clean. Now, the hardest part of this whole process is going to be cutting this carbon into pieces, you know, that will fit over this frame. And so I feel like I've done this enough times. I know I feel like about 8 layers of carbon is like rock solid. Like 8 layers is like from 0 to 8, you have an unbreakable surface nearly. 3 layers is like if you have, you know, you've removed some carbon, maybe 4 layers, 5 layers. So like, you know, like over the crack, I think I want to have about 5 layers, 4 or 5 layers. And so you don't need to cover the whole thing. And it's going to bulge out a lot if you just keep throwing layers on it. And so, yeah, here's my carbon. And so, yeah, this was, you get quite a bit here. I mean, this is way, way more than I'm going to need to fix this bike. I think it was like 6 feet. So, you know, they've given you to fix like, you know, I think you'd probably buy this if you're fixing like a carbon hood or something on your car. You would, you know, so fixing a carbon bike, you don't need this much. When you cut this stuff, it's going to kind of fall apart on you. That's the hardest part. So I need to measure out and cut a piece, start cutting pieces for the frame. So I've cut my pieces. I think this is going to be enough. So this is going to be my main wrap around the tube. And then I'm going to have a second wrap around the tube. And I have, whoa, see, it's starting to come unraveled. So you have to be really careful with it once you cut it. Because it's like, it's, you know, these are each like strands, you know, millions of strands here. All right, so there's my second cut. And then I have my third cut. And then I have my fourth cut. And finally, my fifth cut will just be a small patch to go over the frame. Now, this is all going to get sanded down. And so when I put it on there, so like that fifth cut probably isn't really even necessary, I don't think, you know, because like I said, I'm not trying to make the tube like swole up, you know. Okay, so now I need to mix up my resin here. So let's get that going. So of course, you're going to want to have gloves. I've put 30 millimeters of the resin. And now I'm going to add 15 milliliters of the hardener. I think that's about the right amount. So you want to mix these slowly, you know, just kind of slowly mix them. It says 3 to 5 minutes. First thing I'll do is I'll just take, and I'm just going to spread out some resin. Don't want to put a ton on here yet, just a thin coat on here. And I want to double it up in the front. Oop, I just dripped a bunch. So I'll have my extra in the front. I don't need to put a lot of extra in the back. Probably don't really need any in the back. So I'll wrap that around. Real good. Any of these fibers that come loose, you know, they're gonna be fine, you know, in the mesh. They're not gonna hurt anything. But you know, if you ever worked with paper mache, you want to kind of just work with it the same way. I just got some on my crank here, which is not ideal. And so, you know, like you should really cover up everything. You know, it's gonna run down your frame. Yeah. Okay, next piece. That's my second biggest piece. So it's kind of like working big to small. Let some of the extra resin drip out. Make sure it's all covered in all the fibers. And then same thing, I'll put this one kind of wrap it around. This time, I think I'll just use the resin that's already here instead of dipping it. It's going to go right in the middle there, right where the crack was, right in the front and where it seemed to be at its weakest. Alright, I think that's probably plenty of carbon for this thing. And you know, you're definitely like these little strands, these little guys, you know, you can throw them in there if you want. Probably doesn't really need it. So that's pretty sloppy looking, but we're going to wrap that up really good. I'll start on my original tape. And I'm just going to take a few wraps. And I want to tighten this up, you know, as tight as I can get it without twisting it or breaking it apart. So we should see the extra, extra resin kind of squeezing out of the cracks, which is good. You know, it's stronger when there's not a lot of extra resin in there. I've got this little hole punching tool here, which I think might be ideal for this to get extra carbon out, because you could like run holes into the tape. Yeah, and you can see the extra resin's like kind of going to work its way out of those. So the more resin we can get out of this, the lighter and stronger it's going to be. Oh, that's a great idea. Good job, Matt. Oh, we got resin running down the frame. Okay, so I've done quite a bit of sanding, and I believe I kind of screwed up a little bit. Now, I think the bike is fixed. I think I could ride it. I think it would be just fine. The crack was somewhere right in here where the carbon is the thickest. But what I screwed up, and what I really regret, is that I had wrapped this area. I had covered... See, so I used a grinder to remove the paint here and here. Should just use the slow method and just sanded it off, but it was quicker with the grinder. But then I covered it with tape. So when I put my carbon on, my wraps of carbon, I actually had a little bit on top of this tape. So as I sanded it off, you know, the tape went to about here. And there was places where I think it just didn't cover. So I think this is the actual original carbon of the frame. This is where my wrap starts here. This is like layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4. And I think there's like 5 layers right in here somewhere where it was cracked. So what I'm going to do, because I think it'll look better, I'm not planning on repainting this, and I really don't care how it looks, but I just don't really want the original bare carbon to be left off. And if you watch how people fix these, usually they'll actually put carbon on top of the paint so that, you know, your replacement carbon will actually, you know, kind of be bonded a little bit on top. The first layer will actually go over the top of the old paint, which you would think would be a mistake. But actually, you're going to sand it down. One last layer to finish this thing up. And then I'll do a nice, much better, because I was just using like 80 grit sandpaper to just smooth this thing out. And once that layer's on, I'll do a much better sanding job on it. And we'll call it finished. Okay, one last layer of carbon on here, taped up. Now tomorrow I can take this off and then kind of finish the bike up. Okay guys, so here's the frame as you can see it. Now this is the side that I wasn't looking at that much when I worked on it. I have rode it now at least once and it's fine. It looks like it has lines in it. That's lines from the tape where it kind of compressed the edges of the tape. So I did a little measuring with a caliper. It's wider quite a bit where the crack was, 2 millimeters, 3 millimeters wider. So let's go around and look at the other side. This is the side I actually did most of the sanding on when I was working on it. So it looks quite a bit better, smoother. I need to go back and sand the other side. It's not pretty, but I think it's fixed. If I could go back and do it again, I wouldn't remove as much carbon and paint. I would probably just do about a half of what I did. I don't think I need to do this much. It was kind of overboard, so that was kind of silly. I think the frame is probably stiffer through here. I can't tell a difference in the ride or anything. I don't know if I've probably added a little bit of weight to it, but hopefully it'll last for quite a few more rides. It may break somewhere else, or it may, this could start to crack again or something, but I think it's going to be stiffer and stronger than it was. Probably won't flex as much because, the tube is stronger. It's more carbon on the front and the back. So yeah, I'd call it a success. The last thing I probably need to do, I'll spend a little more time over here sanding some of these lines out and getting this to look a little smoother here on this side. And then I need to put some kind of coating over that. Again, like I said, I don't care about painting it. I don't really care if it looks good or not. In fact, I think people, I think it looks kind of cool when people see this and they're like, oh wow, he's fixed that bike. All right, later guys.